Ma'am, we are doing day 18.
So we will be doing 4 systems today, and whatever you feel are important points while ma'am is explaining, you can note it down in the book. This is for Janvi's question. Yeah, it's 10.
Okay. Okay. So we'll pin ourselves to KitKat lab presentation. So we can see the presentation. Okay. Uh, Now let's begin with the systems. Let's begin with the systems. So in a body, the human body is made up of lot many systems. To name some of them, uh, the food that we eat is entering into the digestive system. We are standing still. We are not like amoeba, which is shapeless. We have some particular shape because of the skeletons in our body. We are breathing air. That air is that air is entering into our lungs, and that goes into the entire body part, and that is going to be our circulatory system and the respiratory system. So these 4 systems that we are going to study today. Besides that, we are able to move our hands. So our hands are moving, our legs are moving. That is possible because of the muscles. Okay. Rest. There is an endocrine system. The endocrine system is the one because of which there are a lot of hormones being produced in our body. So from time to time, the growth level increases. From a child, you become a small, uh, into a small baby, into a little bit more bigger, then into an adult. Then the entire olding, the old age process takes place. That entire is because of the hormonal levels. That would be the endocrine system. And then we have got a nervous system. The nervous systems, which is very important because of which each and every body is connected to our brains. The each and every body part has got sense. That is because of the nervous system, because there are nerves out there. Okay. So these are some of the systems that our body has. We're talking about human beings. It is there in other living organisms also. They may be slightly different, because we are talking about human beings. The human beings falls in the categories of mammals. In the mammals, we'll be considering all these parts. If supposing you consider an amphibian, an, an amphibian like a crocodile, or some other amphibian, a frog, which is a reptile. All these would have slightly different organs, slightly different systems. But right now we are majorly talking about the human body. Okay, so we are going to start with the digestive system. This is the most important one. This is the most easiest one. I'm very sure sometime you must have studied it, or you must be knowing about it
Ma'am,
also.
ma'am, it came in our school as well. Ma'am, we studied this in school.
Okay, so we'll start with the digestive system. Okay, so let's go to our first slide. Uh, the first question that comes to our mind is that where does all the food that we eat go? Where is it exactly getting into? Okay, so that is the main point. it is going into our stomach. And whenever we show our stomach, we point to the stomach, the tummies that we have got, and we say that this food is going there. Okay, the food is going in that particular cavity. Okay, that cavity is called as the abdominal cavity. The abdominal cavity is going to have a lot of other organs, and all those organs together are making a system which is called as the digestive systems. So the digestive system contains a list of organs together, and all those organs together are making the entire digestive organic organ system. So we'll start with the first level, that how it is going one by one. Okay, so this is how the food is. You can see the in the boy and in the girl, both of them are there. Okay, the system is similar, there is no difference. So that means in a boy and in a girl, or in a man and in a woman, the digestive system is the same, it's not different. Okay, so here we'll start with, there is a mouth. Okay, then there is a pipe which is called as a food pipe. Normal common language we say food pipe, and in the proper biological language, if I go to speak, then we'll say it is a esophagus, which is not seen right now, but we'll be seeing it in the next slide. After that, it will enter into the stomach. From the stomach, it will enter into intestines. So there are two types of intestine. One is small intestine. Small intestine, which is very, very thin, which you can see the bundle in between, the thinner one. And then it goes into the larger intestine, that you can see the big bundle. Okay, so there's small intestine, large intestine. Then from the anus, the unwanted food is thrown out. Okay, now in this process, the food that we ate and everything, we ate and it just went out. How did it benefit us? How was it useful to us? So to understand that, we'll go into a little bit deep of each and every organ. Okay, let's go next. Okay, so you'll start, the first thing, the digestive system will start with the mouth. And in the mouth, what is present in the mouth? In the mouth, salivary glands are present. Salivary glands are the ones which produce saliva in your mouth whenever food comes in. Or then we also say, your mouth starts watering when you see very nice food. When you like some food and you say your mouth is watering, right? So that watering means the saliva is produced, and that is, those glands are present in your mouth. There are three types of salivary glands which are present in your mouth, and they would be producing the glands basically to chew the food, to make the food more easier to get digested and to pass through your system. Because if there is some food which is very hard in nature, it may affect your entire chain in the digestion. So that is why it is important for us to make the food nice and moist. Okay. Then pharynx. Pharynx is a very small part connecting the mouth and the food pipe. Okay. There is esophagus. Esophagus is that long tube that you can see. Then after that, you can see how the stomach is on the right hand side. See how the stomach is, what shape it is. From the stomach, it will then next get connected to the small intestine on the left hand side below. And that small intestine is very, very small in size. Okay, but in length, it is very, very big. They say it is approximately 9 meters. Okay, so the length is very big, but the size is small. That is why you call it the small intestine. Okay, then after that, it connects to the large intestine. The large intestine is bigger in diameter and it is smaller in size. The size is smaller, but it is bigger in diameter. Okay, and then finally it passes through the rectum. The rectum is the one that stores your bowels, and then it is thrown out at the correct time. Okay. There are certain other accessory glands that are present. For example, there is liver. Liver is important because it is producing certain juice. The name of the juice is called as bile juice. Okay. That bile juice helps in digestion of the food that you are eating. So if you have ever caught jaundice, okay, you tend to look yellowish in color. Nowadays, kids don't catch jaundice very easily because the vaccination is very good. In our times, we did catch jaundice, and at that time, you look yellowish in color. Why is it? Because this bile uh, is making your body look yellowish in color. So that bile juice is being produced from the liver. After that, you've got a gallbladder also that is storing the that is storing the bile juice. So from the liver, the juice gets stored into the gallbladder, and from the gallbladder, it will enter into the small intestine. So the entry of this bile juice is happening in the small intestine. Though they are outside the system, but the entry of it is happening in the uh, small intestine. Okay. And then you have got the pancreas. Pancreas is also producing a pancreatic juice, which is also entering into the small intestine. So all these kind of juices are there, which are important for the digestion of the food. Yesterday I told you all, huh?
Excuse me,
Someone is saying something.
ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, when you're explaining about jaundice, so that does that mean if the liver excretes excess amount of bile, that's when jaundice happens.
No, there are certain contents in it which increases because of the effect on the liver. Okay, let's not go on to that. Okay, let's not go on to that right now. Okay, it, we'll just study about the digestive system right now. Okay, chalo, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so the first after see when the food is in the mouth, okay, what is going to happen is two organs which are working in the mouth are, first of all is your teeth, and the second one is the saliva. Okay, the teeth is making the food into smaller pieces, so that is called as a mechanical churning. Okay, so that means that food is getting broken down into smaller pieces by the teeth. That is a function of the teeth. Okay, in the teeth we have got lots of different types of teeth. We have got molars, premolars, incisors, all those different types of teeth are there. Okay, those teeth are breaking the food into smaller pieces, and helping that is the salivary glands. The salivary glands are producing saliva, and that saliva is breaking the food there. What do I mean by breaking food by the salivary glands? I mean that they are releasing certain enzymes, means certain chemicals, certain living chemicals. Okay, enzymes are kind of living chemicals. What those living chemicals do, they have kind of a lock and key system. So if supposing you have a particular key to a cupboard, that key will go only in that cupboard. It will not enter into another cupboard with another lock. So those enzymes will attach themselves to whatever they are specific to in your food, and they will break the food down. So if your food material is like a long chain, okay, it's like a long chain means it's I always give this example, is it's like a pearl necklace. Okay, it's like a pearl necklace. What it will try to do is it will try to break those pearl necklace into separate pearls. Okay, so probably in the first time it will break it into half, or it may break it into one third, or so on. Okay. So the breaking part is taking place by this enzymes, and they are making the food into simpler substances. Why simpler substances? Because finally, when we require the food, we require only one pearl. Only one pearl can be allowed into our each and every cell. Okay, so that to get into each and every cell, that food that you have eaten has to come to that particular level, to that particular small level of the pearl. Okay, so that breaking is done by these enzymes. So first breaking down itself starts from your mouth. The mouth will start breaking it, plus mechanically breaking it also into smaller pieces, and secondly making it into simpler chemical substances. Okay, so both physical and chemical processes happening in your mouth. And now what the food is being made is called as a bolus. B-O-L-U-S. The food is now called as a bolus. This bolus is like a big mass of a grinded food. It is going into your next part, that is esophagus. Esophagus is just like a lift, it is getting it down. Now it will go into your stomach. The stomach is acting like a grinder. It is grinding the food more and more with the help of certain enzymes again, and most importantly, there is also production of uh, HCl, that is hydrochloric acid. What does the hydrochloric acid do? If there is any presence of microorganisms or any viruses, it tries to kill it there if it is in the range of its pH. Okay, so both the things, again there are some enzymes and again there are some HCl added, so that that food is getting more into more simpler chemical substances. Okay, now whatever will happen in your stomach will be all chemical process only. It is making it more chemically simpler. Okay, after that it now enters into your small intestine. Now this small intestine is very important, and that is the reason why it is so long also, 9 meters long. Why? Now this is the reason why you have food. The reason that you have food is because whatever nutrients that you're eating in the food, those simpler pearls that we're talking about, then about the proteins, then about the vitamins, minerals, all those things, those useful substances are being vacuumed. Okay. Normally we say we do vacuum of dirty material. Here, the small intestine vacuums the good material from the food, and that good material from the food will now enter into your blood, and this is done by small hair-like substances which is present in your small intestine, which is known as villi. Villus singular, Villi plural. Okay, so the small intestine has hair-like substances, hair-like projections inside it, and as the food is passing, all the good material has to be vacuumed in and has to be given to the blood. So the blood connection is very strong in the small intestine. Okay, from that, now the good material was taken. Okay, in that 9-meter long tube, the good was taken in. Now what is left is the bad material, means the food that we don't require, basically all the roughage, all the food that we cannot digest. For example, the plants that we are eating, okay, we can eat the proteins and the carbohydrates stored inside the plants, but we cannot eat the roughage that's there inside it. That roughage that is there has been formed into a big block of dirt which passes onto the large intestine. As large intestine it is passing, what the body tries to do is it tries to remove little by little water from it. So it is like squeezing. You're squeezing out the water. So the squeezing process of means all the useful water is being squeezed out in the large intestine. And that water then will pass to the kidney. for the excretory system. Okay, so that is going next to the excretory system, the water. But the bad whatever was there is now being formed into a big chunk, and then it is getting stored in the rectum, and finally from the anus it is being removed outside. Okay, so I'm very sure the process of digestion is clear with you all. In this entire process, I told you all, liver secretes bile juice which gets stored in the gallbladder, that is being released in the small intestine. Similar way, even pancreas also releases pancreatic juices, and it is being released in the small intestine. So all these are the helping organs. These helping organs release juices and send it to the small intestine, because that is where again the final process of picking up on good material happens, and then finally the bad material is thrown out of the body. This is the main digestion process that is happening from the mouth till the anus. Okay, next slide.
Ma'am, where is the gallbladder?
The gallbladder is right behind the stomach. It's right near, it's below the liver, it's below the liver and the, it's between the liver and the stomach, between both these organs. Okay. Okay, so now we have got the mouth. Again, this, whatever I just explained is just given again out here, okay? So it is digesting the food, ingesting means you take the food inside, you're chewing it. Chemical breakdown is happening basically of carbohydrates. Then it is going into the pharynx. It is breaking down some lipids also. Okay, so the major functions are these. Okay, next it goes into the pharynx. The pharynx propels the food from the oral cavity into the esophagus. So basically it is a connection between the mouth and the esophagus. Esophagus will send the food to the stomach. It's like a lift. The food is just from the mouth, it is going into the abdominal cavity. So see, the mouth is there in the oral cavity, in a head, and now the stomach is there in the abdominal cavity. Now in between the mouth and the stomach, there is the part in which there is lung and there is heart. So that connection has to be done. That is done by the esophagus. Okay. Stomach is what contains the gastric juices. Okay. The chemical breakdown of proteins takes place in the stomach. Okay. And then finally, from the stomach, like we said, in the mouth, what releases out is called as bolus. When from the stomach the material enters into the small intestine, it is called as chyme, chyme, chyme. Okay, and okay, and it also it is also doing some work for the fats. The fats also are being broken down into simpler substances and antimicrobial activity, because it releases hydrochloric acid. Okay, so this is everything same that I said. Okay, but this presentation is there. You can see it whenever, so you can go more into details of it if required, if you have the wish to go into more details of it. Okay, next. Okay, the small intestine. From the small intestine, the main thing is the absorption of the broken products of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, along with minerals, vitamins, and water. So these things are being absorbed by the small intestine. Okay. Then in that, whatever is coming is the production from the liver. That is, it produces the bile juices. That bile juices are being stored in the gallbladder. It releases it into the small intestine. The pancreas also produces certain juices which is called as a pancreatic juice that also contains enzymes and it releases it into the small intestine. Okay. And further in the large intestine, what happens is only the important water is being sucked up back, okay, and rest whatever feces is being produced is being thrown away towards the rectum, and finally it gets eliminated outside. Okay, so the same thing that I repeated more in detail. Whenever you wish, you can uh, get into this table and you can see.
Ma'am,
Okay. Yes.
ma'am, can you please speak a bit loudly? I cannot hear you.
Okay. Next.
Ma'am, I cannot hear you.
I'm not speaking anything right now. Just see the GIF. Okay. In the GIF, you can see how in the mouth the material is getting broken down. Then it is going into the stomach. From the stomach, it is going through the small intestine, and from the small intestine, it is going into the large intestine. Okay, and then finally, it is being thrown out as a rectum from the rectum as feces. Whoever was asking me where is the gallbladder, see in the left hand side, you can see the picture. Liver is there, right below it gallbladder is there. So gallbladder is in between the liver and the stomach. See the position of the salivary glands also. Upside you can see three yellow color salivary glands in that pictures, how they are located. Okay.
So, ma'am, the salivary glands are located below the tongue, besides the tongue, and above the tongue.
Yes.
Ma'am, what is the role of appendix?
The appendix is near the small intestine and large intestine where they are meeting. You can see one small bit of piece outside. That is called as the appendix. They say it is a vestigial organ, means it is not in use at all. Why it is present and what it is present, there are a lot of theories on it. But yes, appendix is not for any use right now.
Ma'am, there's an operation to take it out as well. You have to do an operation and take it out.
What?
Ma'am, you have to have an operation and take the appendix out if it hurts or something.
Yeah, if it hurts you, then you have to remove it. Okay. I think we're done. Next. For your experiment, okay, what we were going to do is, with help of clay, we were going to make the entire digestive system on a sheet, which will have the digestive system printed. So you would have to make the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas. So in this process, you basically learn shape of the organ and you also come to know the organ sequentially also. Okay. This is the best activity we can do for the digestive system. Okay. Next. Any questions related to this or this system?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
Okay,
what
one by
is lipid? Ma'am,
what?
what are lipids and linguine lipids?
Lipases is the enzyme that is going to break down the fats. So lipids is the smaller pearls that we are talking about, the fats. The smaller pearls of carbohydrates that we talk, they are called as glucose. The smaller pearls that we talk about, proteins, we call them as amino acids. And the smaller pearls that we talk about, fats, is what we call them as lipids. So accordingly, the name of the enzymes that break them comes. So if you want to break down a protein, The name of that enzyme could be proteases. Okay, and the name which breaks down the lipase, the lipids, we could call them as lipase. Okay, and so on. Uh,
Ma'am,
yes,
I didn't understand the function of gallbladder.
gallbladder is just storing the digestive juice which is being produced by the liver. It is just a storage. It is just storing the bile juice which is being produced by the liver. So from time to time and the quantity required, that particular juice will be released into the digestive system.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Next, anything? We'll go to the next system, that is the respiratory system. Okay. Now, two things we're taking into our body inside. One thing that we're taking inside is the food. Okay. And the second thing that we are taking inside is what is the air that we're taking inside. The food that we took inside, okay, we studied that it is all getting broken down chemically into simpler substances like the small pearls. I just told you all the small pearls that we're talking about is glucose, amino acids, then lipids, all these small points we're talking about. Okay, out of them, all these small chemical substances, out of them, glucose is what is important for us because glucose is being carried to each and every uh, cell in our body. Okay. The another important thing that each and every cell in our body requires is oxygen. Okay. So this oxygen is being taken in by the air that we breathe in. Okay. In the process of every cell, it will utilize, it will cook. So basically, let's compare it like each and every cell is cooking energy for itself, and the raw materials that it require is given by two systems. One system is the digestive system, which gives it the glucose, and the second system, that is the respiratory system, which gives it oxygen. So these two raw materials it requires to produce energy, and in that process, it releases certain byproducts, that is carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is not required by a body, so it has to be thrown out. So the inhaling and exhalation, inhaling air which is rich in oxygen and exhaling air which is rich in carbon dioxide is what we call as respiration. Okay. uh,
Ma'am, but what
we
about the other gases in the air?
those other gases will just follow till our lungs. Okay, from the lungs only only the oxygen is taken in, and only the carbon dioxide is given. The rest of the gases will in itself only be released outside. Okay, they will not be taken in by the body. Okay, so we'll go to the first slide. This is what is important, what I just told you all. Food plus oxygen will give you energy plus carbon dioxide. So the food we are taking in by the digestive system, the oxygen you're taking in by the respiratory system, that is coming into carbon dioxide, which has to be released out, and the energy that is stored in your body in the form of ATP. It is stored in the form of ATP, and it will be utilized as and when you require energy. Right now, when I'm talking, I'm requiring energy, so my ATP is being used by the cells of my mouth, by the cells of my brains. Those all are using the ATP. Your eyes are also seeing it, your brain is hearing it, your ears are hearing it. All those cells are using the ATPs that were stored in them before in hand. Okay. So respiration is the process by which we are releasing energy from the food, and respiration is basically when we are uh, breathing in oxygen and producing energy from the food, and we are breathing out carbon dioxide. Okay, we'll go deep into it a little bit more. Next slide. Okay. Respiration involves two type of respiration. One is external and one is internal. Okay. When I talk about external respiration, I mean simply the process of breathing in and breathing out. Okay. So whenever I'm breathing in, I am taking in air. Now, when I take in air, we studied air contains 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, then rest of the noble gases and everything. All that together as a mixture is entering into our nose. From the nose, it is going into the air pipe, that is called as the trachea. From the air pipe, it is going into the lungs. All these things are coming together into the lungs. Okay, from the lungs, where it is going, how it is going, we'll go into the next, after two slides we'll see it. But right now understand that there is a process by which we are inhaling all this air. Now when we are exhaling out air, we are exhaling air that contains, again, that nitrogen as it is goes away. Okay, nitrogen goes away, all the noble gases and all those other gases goes away. Yes, but the oxygen that was 21% when we took in, because it was utilized by our body, now the percentage of oxygen that we are giving out is 16%. So 5% of oxygen was taken in by your body. Okay, and the carbon dioxide that we took in was 0.03% approximately. Now when we throw the air outside, approximately it becomes 1%. Okay, so see how the change in the percentage of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. The rest of the air, the mixtures of the gases that was there is just taken into the lungs and again thrown outside. Those all are non-reacting gases. They're not going to affect anything into our lungs, nothing. They will not be absorbed by our body also, because our body is very, very specific. It will attach to only the objects that it requires. Okay. So whatever is taken in, oxygen is taken in, carbon dioxide is given out. So this process of taking in and giving out air is called as the external respiration. That is, when you take in air, it is called as inhalation. When you give out air, it is called as exhalation. Okay. So you're taking in air rich in oxygen, and you're exhaling out air that is rich in carbon dioxide. Inhalation and exhalation process. Okay, next slide. Okay. Um Now, as I told you, the cavity the uh, from the mouth till the stomach, there's another cavity. Okay, in that cavity, what is present is the lungs. What is protecting the lungs over the lungs is your rib cage. That yellow and reddish is like kind of a rib cage. They have not shown the entire one. They're just showing you a part of it, so that for you to understand what is happening to it. If you can see, when the air is taken in, okay, the air is taken in, the lungs are enlarging. Once the lungs enlarge, even the rib cage will also enlarge. Okay. Now, if you see, there is a red color line below the lungs. That is called as a diaphragm. The diaphragm is like a thin membrane which is separating the lungs and the stomach. Okay, so it is separating the lungs and the stomach. That is called as the diaphragm. So that diaphragm also, you can see, it is also expanding and contracting. So when the lungs are in the inhalation process, when they are in the inhalation process, you see see the diaphragm will expand. Okay, the lungs are full now. Now when you exhale, the diaphragm will again contract and the lungs again release the air outside. Okay, so there is inhalation and there is exhalation. Okay, in the inhalation, on the left side you can see the picture, the chest cavity that is there, the chest cavity is expanding. Okay. So what is there in the chest cavity? The first outer layer that you can see in the chest cavity is the rib cage. Okay, so the rib cage is expanding, correct? And when the rib cage is expanding means it is going out. The diaphragm is also contracting, means it is getting flat. Okay, you can see how it is getting flatter. And because it's getting flat, there is more space created. And because more space is created, you say that there is place for the lungs to expand. And so the lungs are also expanding. Okay. If you can see in the exhalation process, you say the diaphragm relaxes. So the diaphragm goes back to its place. Okay, like a dome shape. The ribs also goes inside, and the chest cavity, that is your lungs that were there, they are again deflating. In first case, the lungs were inflating, now they are deflating, like how a balloon goes. When you blow it, it inflates. When you remove the air, it deflates. Okay, so this is the process of inhalation and exhalation that is taking place. Okay, this is the external respiration that we're talking about. Means the physical process, the physical change of just taking in air rich in oxygen and giving out air rich in carbon dioxide. Next. There is a very good connection between the environment and the living beings. Why is it so? Because all the animals that are there, they are taking in oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. And the plants in turn, they will take in carbon dioxide for the process of photosynthesis. And in that, they will release out oxygen. So in a way, you say that the trees are acting like an air purifier. They're purifying the air with the carbon dioxide that we are breathing outside. Okay, so the process, this is like a balanced process of respiration and photosynthesis in nature. It is being done. So more the trees that are around you, the air is fresh. What do you mean by fresh air? You get more oxygen. So you are breathing in good air. Okay, that is very important. Okay, next. So the respiratory system will start from the nose. From the nose, it will go into the trachea. Okay, the blue color that you can see, the trachea. Now that trachea is like a main highway. Okay, it's like a main national highway. Okay, now it is splitting into two sides, left side and right side. So it is splitting into left lung and right lung. The road that is taking left and right is what you call as the bronchus. There are two bronchus, left bronchus and right bronchus. Okay, left bronchus goes into the left lung, the right bronchus goes into the right lung. Okay, now that main bronchus that you can see in the picture of the lungs, they are still breaking down into more smaller lanes. So from the national highway, you went into state highway. Now from the state highway, you're going into the city highways. Okay, the city roads. Okay, and finally, what happens is you enter into your colony or your building or your society road and you come to your house. Okay, so what is the house that we require the oxygen or the air to reach? That is called as the alveoli. Okay, we'll see it in the next one, but right now just see how nose to trachea, trachea to bronchus. From bronchus, the small roads, city roads are called as bronchial tubes, small bronchial tubes, and finally they end at the alveoli. Okay, so next. Okay, so this on the left side you can see the bronchial tubes, and they are all entering into small bulb like small bulbs. They are called as the alveoli. They are the final house where the air has to reach. Okay, now here if you can see on the extreme right side, we've shown you a picture of one particular alveoli. Okay, and in that one particular alveoli you can see there's a supply of uh, a blood vessel. Okay, now that blood vessel is what is allowing the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide to take place. So up till the lungs that it enters, it is happening, the entire process is just taking in and taking out of air. Now near the bronchus it is touching into the blood. So this is where exactly in the alveoli the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is going to take place. And
Ma'am,
the yes,
ma'am, can you please repeat? I didn't understand.
what you didn't understand, from where you didn't understand?
Ma'am, from the bronchioles.
Okay. The bronchioles enters into small bulb-like substances, what we called as the alveoli. Okay. This alveoli is where the main exchange of the gases that you are taking in and removing out takes place. And this alveoli is surrounded by blood vessels. So it is surrounded by arteries and veins. Okay, it is here that the blood capillaries are there, and what will happen is that you are taking in oxygen. So whatever oxygen you are taking in from the bronchioles, it is entering into the alveoli, the bulb. Okay, from the bulb it will now enter into the blood. It will go into the blood, and from the blood whatever carbon dioxide was there will now go into the alveoli again, and from the alveoli it will go back to your lungs, means to your trachea, and finally to your nose. So your intake of oxygen comes till the alveoli. From alveoli, it enters into the blood. And after the exit of carbon dioxide from the blood happens into the alveoli, and then finally it will go back outside into the air. Okay. In the GIF, you can see how oxygen is being taken in. The yellow part is the oxygen. So when the oxygen is taken in, you can see how the vessels are becoming yellow in color, and once the carbon dioxide is being given out, you can see how it is red in color. So that red in color is going again into those bronchioles. So those bronchioles are entering into alveoli, small, very small ones. They are microscopic. You can't even see them, okay? They are going into those alveoli, and the exchange of gases is taking place out there. Okay, so this is up till here, that is exchange of gas taking place, and the gas entering into your the gas exchange taking place into your blood is called as the external respiration. Okay, this is what is external respiration. Next. Now, now what we're talking about, that we took in the air, that air was containing the oxygen. Now that oxygen is going to go into your tissues. it is going into your cells, all the different types of cells. Let it be muscle cell, let it be a nervous cell, let it be a cell that is present in your stomach, let it be a cell present in your hands, in your hair, wherever. All those cells are going to get the oxygen uh, from the blood. Okay, so from the blood, the entire oxygen is entering into the cells. Now, those cells, whatever cooking part that it is doing, is what we are calling it as the internal respiration. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so now where is this process happening? In the cell, you can see small, small mitochondria. The small mitochondria. Those small mitochondria is where a very complex, process of cooking takes place, in which you require glucose and oxygen. So glucose from the food that was eaten has entered into the blood, and oxygen from the alveoli has entered into the blood. Both of these materials, raw materials, are entering into the blood. From the blood, they're entering into each and every cell. In each and every cell, it is going to each and every mitochondria. And there, the entire complex process of food making is taking place, in which it is producing. Can you see ATP? That is what it is producing. It
Yes,
is
ma'am.
producing a lot of energy, and that energy is what we are utilizing in each and every second, even for thinking, even for blinking your eyes, or for any process. Okay, that is what we are using the ATP for. Okay, so next slide.
No, I didn't understand this internal respiration only.
If you didn't understand, leave it. It is just as an extra information given to you. Just remember that for the internal respiration, you just require two things: the glucose and the oxygen. The glucose comes from the digestion, the oxygen comes from the respiration, and we are just mixing that up in the cells, and it is producing energy. That's it. You don't need to require anything more than that. You can do it when you study it, probably in your 10th 11th standard. Okay, so this is exactly how the system is working. You can see how the air is going in, the lungs are spreading outside, and when the lungs are releasing the air back, how the lungs deflate and the air is removed outside. This is how the respiratory system works. Okay, is this respiratory system clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Any
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
question? Okay, so we'll go to the next system. Now we're going into the circulatory system. So basically the system that is responsible for transportation of all the materials. Which materials we're talking about? We're talking about the food and the oxygen and whatever XYZ materials that is reaching from our head to our toe and from our toe to, so the entire process, going up to down,
Water,
down
ma'am.
to, yes, all these things, water, everything that is happening because of the respiratory system. First slide. Okay. So the respiratory system is also called as a cardiovascular system. That is why a person who mainly deals with the heart is called as a, a, a cardiac doctor, or he's also called as a cardiovascular doctor. Okay. What is present in this system? The main thing that is present in this system is your heart. That is the first thing that is present. From the heart, whatever is there in the heart, that is the blood. The blood is there in the heart. So you have the heart, you have the blood. After that heart and blood, what else is there? The channel in which the blood is going to move. The channel in which the blood is going to move is what we call as the blood vessels. Okay. Now, whenever I say good blood and bad blood, I don't mean that the blood is dirty. Okay. I mean, when I say good blood, I mean the blood contains oxygen. It is called as good blood. Okay, it's just a general notion, and just for representation, we just draw it as blue color. It's just for representation. It is not really happening there. Okay, the blood is red in color only. In fact, the brighter blood it is, the brighter red, it means there is more oxygen. A slight dull red color, it means that there is more of carbon dioxide inside it. But just for our studying purpose, we've just drawn the blue color and the red color blood vessels. So the blood vessels that you see in red color, they all contain the good blood and they are called as the arteries. Okay. And the ones that are blue in color, they are called as the veins, and they contain the bad blood. That means they contain the blood that contains the carbon dioxide present inside it. Okay. So what were things this blood vessels move? The blood vessels moves oxygen, means the gases, the nutrients, that is the food, the hormones. All these things are being passed from one body part to the other by the blood vessels. So three main parts of the circulatory system: the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels. That is the arteries and the veins. Okay, next. So first we're talking about the heart. Where is the heart present? The heart is present right in the center, slightly towards the left, okay, of your chest cavity. Chest cavity slightly towards the left. Okay. So because of that, because it's slightly towards your left lung is slightly smaller to accommodate the heart. So the size of the left lung is going to be slightly smaller and the size of the right lung will be little bit larger than the left lung. Okay. And it is slightly tilted towards the left. It is there, but the heart is slightly tilted towards the left. We say that the heart has got 4 chambers. So can you see the upper 2 chambers are marked as right atrium and left atrium. So the upper ones are called as atriums, or we can also call them as atria. Okay. The below ones you can see is called as the ventricles. Okay. The right ventricle and the left ventricle. Okay. Between each of this, that is between the atrium and the ventricle, there is a partition. Okay. So that there's no mixing that takes place. Similarly, you can see on the left side also, there's a partition that is going to separate the left atrium and the left ventricle. This partition is there. Okay. If you can see, the right side is blue in color. Okay, means all the deoxygenated blood, all the blood containing the carbon dioxide is entering towards your right side of the heart. From there, it has to get purified. So where it's going to get purified? In your lungs. So from the right side, it is entering into your lungs. The lungs are going to purify it. So they make the lungs, the blood rich in oxygen again, and it again enters into the left atrium. So always the flow is going to be there from atrium to ventricle. So the flow of blood comes the right side. First it enters into the right atrium. From right atrium, it is coming into the right ventricle. From there, it is going to the lungs. Okay, so right atrium to right ventricle into the lungs. From the lungs, it will come back to the right, to the left atrium. From the left atrium, it will come into the left ventricle, and from there, it will be released again to all the body parts. This is how the entire flow of blood takes place in the heart. Okay, so always remember, right side contains the deoxygenated blood, the left side contains the oxygenated blood. The blood flow happens means all the blood from all the body parts is entering into the right side of the heart. From there, it is going into the lungs. The lungs are uh, the lungs allow the exchange of gases taking place at the alveoli. They are getting exchanged into oxygen, carbon dioxide. That process takes place that we just saw, and so the blood becomes now oxygen rich, oxygenated blood. It now again enters back into the heart, that is the left atrium. From left atrium, it comes into the left ventricle, and from there, it goes to all the body parts.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Hmm.
Ma'am, in the diagram, it is showing that the upper ones are called atrium. But ma'am, in the when it's written that the heart has 4 chambers, the upper two are called atria. So ma'am, what should we write if it comes in questions? Atrium or atria?
Both are correct.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, actually, atrium is a singular noun and the other one is the plural one.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So we'll go to the next organ of the circulatory system. I just spoke about it. The arteries. The arteries are containing the good blood. The veins are containing the bad blood, means the deoxygenated blood. Okay. Now, arteries and veins are slightly bigger in size. Okay. There is a part where in each and every organ they're going to meet, and they're going to become into more smaller, fine tubes. Those are what we call as capillaries. Okay, so those capillaries are like very thin. Okay, they are, how big they are means how, what is the size? They would be the size of one cell. So you can't see the capillaries because a cell you can't see. A cell is microscopic. So even the capillaries are also microscopic, and it is this part where the uh, the infusion of the arteries and veins take place. So let's consider that is, supposing you're considering the eye. Okay, so in the eye, the good flow of blood is coming in. Okay, so that good flow of blood means the oxygen is being used up by the eye cells, and now the carbon dioxide which was produced is now being given away into the blood again. So that capillaries is exchanging the oxygen and exchanging out the carbon dioxide, and it is going back. So when something goes into some organ, whenever any blood vessel goes into any organ, you call it that particular name as artery. So the artery that enters into the kidney is called as the I forgot the name. Forgot the name. Okay. So it's called as that particular artery. Whenever that blood vessel is entering into that organ, whenever that particular vessel is exiting from that organ, then the name given to it would be the vein. Okay. So the blood vessel flow is as such. Entering in artery, it splits into capillaries and it enters out as a vein. Okay, so whichever body part you take, the entering in of the blood vessel will be called as the artery. That is because it was containing the oxygen related blood. Now that oxygen is given to that body part, that body organ, and whatever it released out, carbon dioxide is again given back, and it releases, uh, it is coming out back as the vein. Okay, so I'm very sure this blood vessel is clear. You can see this GIF is showing how I explained you all from the heart. Okay, the heart, the left side, all the deoxygenated blood is coming into the upper part of the heart, then it goes into the lower part of the heart, and then it goes into the uh, lungs. Okay, from there, the lungs purifying it, and it is sending back into the heart. From the heart, again, that blood is being pumped and is being sent to all the body parts. Here, there is one question which might come, which is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood. So the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood would be the pulmonary arteries. So the arteries that enter into the lungs. Why? Because lung is purifying the heart, no, purifying the blood. So that is why the arteries that carry deoxygenated blood only, the only and only artery in the entire body that carries a deoxygenated blood would be the pulmonary arteries, and the only vein that carries uh, oxygenated blood would be the pulmonary vein. These two are opposite as in to the entire body. In the entire body, arteries will carry the good blood and veins will carry the bad blood, but it's only related to the lungs because lungs is where the purification is taking place, and so the pulmonary arteries carry the deoxygenated and the pulmonary vein will carry the oxygenated blood. Okay.
So, ma'am, the red arteries carry the bad blood, right?
No, red contains the good blood. The red is always the good blood. Blue is the bad blood. It's only in case
Ma'am,
of...
in the PDF, it is written oxygen poor CO2 rich blood, oxygen rich CO2 poor blood.
I just explained that. Were you listening to me? I just explained that. It's only in case of pulmonary artery, only the artery that is related to the lungs, that it contains deoxygenated blood. And only the vein that is coming out from the lungs contains the oxygenated blood. It's only an exception. I specifically specified it. See, you know what? You all are so busy writing messages and reading messages that you all don't listen to me. The efforts given by us teachers to make the presentation, to come up and to teach, you all are not taking that efforts now. From tomorrow, I don't want Riha Mahipal, Ribwa Patel, Sonia Sharma, Adi, this beast rule, Ayam Jain. I don't want these students in my class. I will stop taking the class. If you all are so interested to talk, I might as well tell Swapna, please arrange a call so that you all can start talking. Please enjoy that 1.5 hours to talk. I'm very sure this message should be made reach to the parents that the efforts taken by us is great because we are teaching them something that is being taught to 7th and 8th standard also. And if they're really not interested, please don't waste time of the people who are really interested because you're disturbing them also. I don't want any messages. No sorry, no thank you, no good morning, nothing. Next slide. The next part that is the part of the circulatory system is called as the blood. The blood is what is important, which is flowing in the heart, which is flowing into all the blood vessels. So the blood is the transport system. The blood is like a lift. The blood is making all the material reach from one point to the other. Okay, what materials the blood needs to reach to all the parts? That would be the food, the digestive food, the good food that we sucked in, the oxygen, and whatever whatever waste materials needs to be thrown out. In the waste material, it would be carbon dioxide gas. It would be certain waste materials that is being eliminated even by the kidney, that is by the excretory system. That would be excess of water, that would be urea, uric acid. All those things are also carried into the blood. So whenever you want, the blood is like a very rich source. That is why we go for a blood test every time. The blood will tell you your entire kind of, I can say, kundali. Okay, the kundli will be shown to you by the blood. So everything that is happening in your body would be told in by the blood, because the blood contains all the components. It has to make it reach from one organ to the other organ. So that is going to happen by the blood. Okay. Now the blood itself is composed of a lot of things. So we'll see that next. The blood contains mainly the base. The base of the blood is made up of plasma. Can you see the yellow color material? That is called as a plasma. Okay, so that is there. What is yellow color is there. Besides that, it has got a lot of cells inside it, single cells. So those single cells are, one is the red blood cells, one is the white blood cells, and one is the platelets. Okay, so you have got plasma as like your base material, and in that base material you have got red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets. So this is the major component of the blood. Along with this, it carries all the other material, but the blood in as such is made up of these four components: the base, that is the plasma, and the cells. Yes. Okay. So the composition of plasma is approximately 55%. The red blood cells are another 41%, and the white blood cells and the platelets together make up the 4%. So the quantity of red blood cells is 41%, because of which you can understand why the color of your blood is red. Okay, you can see the color as red color. Okay, that is present because of a component on the red blood cells, which is called as the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is a component on the RBC which contains iron. Okay, iron, Fe. The iron metal is present in your hemoglobin, which is helping to catch your oxygen. Okay, so that hemoglobin present on the red blood cell is responsible for the red color of your blood. Okay, so the main function of the plasma is it is making the blood liquidy. If you can see, blood is made up of three components. Again, we come up to the point: blood is a mixture. Blood is not a compound. Blood is a mixture of different materials. Blood is a mixture of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Okay, so this plasma is what is rich in proteins. It contains water mainly. Okay, and we studied about centrifugation process.
Ma'am,
Yes,
ma'am, the blood that comes out when we get hurt, is that red blood cells?
it is the blood. It is the entire mixture of blood that is coming out. It is not only red blood cell that is coming out.
Okay, ma'am.
So we studied about centrifugation. So this is in the vial that you can see. When you have taken red blood cells, you put into the centrifuge. This components get separated as this way. So red RBCs are very, very dense. They settle down. Then in between, a small layer comes of the 4% of white blood cells and platelets. And above that, we have got plasma. Okay, that is very, very light. The main function of plasma is to make the blood liquidy. Okay, it is 90% water made, that plasma. The white blood cells are called as the police force of the body. The white blood cells fight against any infection that happens. Okay, so any infection that takes place in your body will be fought by the WBC. So whenever you do a blood test, the doctors want to see a hemogram. The hemogram will tell you how much percent of white blood cells in your body is there. If the white blood cells body has increased, that means that you have had an infection according to the quantity, or you are having an infection right now. So the WBC content will change a little bit when there is an infection in your body. Okay. What is the function of the platelets? When you get hurt, slowly the hurt will be covered by a layer, and that layer is what we call as the platelets. The platelets are helping to make your blood stop, and it gives your skin a protective layer again. So it is helping to clot the blood. So the blood clot process is taking place by the platelets. And the RBCs, I already told you the main function to carry oxygen. Carrying oxygen and carrying carbon dioxide is the main function of your red blood cells. The red blood cells contains an important pigment known as hemoglobin. That hemoglobin contains the metal iron, Fe, which is catching the oxygen. Okay, so very important metal in our body, iron. That is why when the doctor sees that you are anemic, or you have less of blood in your body, or you have less of iron, they prescribe you pills. They prescribe you iron pills. Okay, so this is the function of the blood component. Next. The heart is continuously beating rhythmically. That rhythm of that heartbeat is going continuously to each and every blood cell. It is going to all the arteries and all the veins. And that is what, when the doctor checks with the stethoscope, they can feel that your heart is beating. There's a particular rhythm which should be followed, so that they can say your heart is working well. If there is some heart disease, that rhythm will be affected, and because of which the doctors will ask you to go for further test. So using instruments today, we are able to judge the heartbeat. If you go to see mainly in your body, you will see mainly blue color. You see it as blue color. It is not blue in color. It is actually red in color. It is just because of the process of light absorption process. The light absorbing the colors and reflecting back. That is why you can see it. And when the doctor wants to take a pulse, what he does is he will take the pulse near your hand. Near your hand means near your palm. Okay, that is the only artery which is above. Arteries contain the good blood, so that's why they are more thicker. They are very thick, and veins are more thinner. Okay, because they carry oxygen. The deoxygenated blood, that is the carbon dioxide. So they are more towards the superficial. Superficial means more towards your skin layer, and the arteries are more inside the muscles. So the only artery that is superficial is your radial artery, which is there in your palm. That is the only artery, and that is where they can feel the pulse. The pulse is what is happening because of the heartbeat. The heart is beating, and that heartbeat is causing that. It's like an action reaction process. So that heartbeat beating is passing that beat slowly from the heart to your hands, and it's passing right up to your palm. And that is why you can feel the pulse. That is what is your heartbeat and your pulse, which the doctor normally feels. Okay? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we have done 3 systems. The first system that we did was the digestive system. The second system that we did was the respiratory system. And the third system we did was the circulatory system. The specific order we followed today was because for you all to understand that how from the digestion we are getting the good food, from the respiration we are getting the oxygen, and finally that is now going into the blood. The blood is now circulating to each and every body part. Okay, so that is how all these 3 systems work in hand. In a human body, all the systems work hand in hand. They have to work hand in hand, then only the body can flourish and can get proper nutrition in all the ways. So I'm very sure you all must have understood how digestion, how respiration, and how circulation is important for the human function.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yes.
How is blood classified into different blood groups? What does that basically mean?
No, I can't hear you, Ronak.
Ma'am, how is blood classified into different blood groups?
Okay, blood groups. Okay, so on the red blood cells, there are certain, let me explain it for you in an easy way. There are certain components present on the red blood cells which are in different shapes. Okay, right now just let me go in a very easy way. Okay, uh, they are called as antigens. Those special components are called as antigens. So if you have presence of an antigen A, let's say the shape of that antigen is a triangle. Okay, so if you have that triangular antigen, then you will say that the body has got blood group A. If you have got a circular antigen, then you have got a blood group B. If you have got both of them, the triangular and the circular together, then you call it AB blood group. And if you have none of them, means none of these are there, not even the circular, not even the triangular, then you will call it the blood group O. This is how what determines the factor AB, and O. Now, along with that, we also say plus or minus. There is another one more factor which is called as the RH factor. If that RH factor is present, you will say present, so you say plus. If it is absent, then you say minus. So if along with the triangle you have got RH, you will say A positive. If along with the triangle you don't have that RH factor, you will say A negative. If with the circular one you have got RH, you will say B positive. If with the circular you don't have that RH factor, you will say B negative. If you have got the triangle, the circle, and the RH factor, all 3 together, you will say AB positive. If you have only triangle and circle and not the RH, you will say AB negative. If you don't have any of these antigens, not even triangle, not even circle, not even RH, then it is O negative. If you have only RH, then it is O positive. So on depending on that particular antigen factor, those are again proteins. Okay, those are special proteins which are present on each and every RBC. So on that RBCs, it will determine what is your blood group.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone? Anything more? Any more questions?
No, ma'am.
So we are
Ma'am, how
done.
can we determine that how much white blood cells and platins are there?
Platelets.
Platelets, ma'am.
Yeah, they remove the blood. They remove
How
the
come?
blood. How you remove the blood for your blood test? You remove the blood for your blood test. They remove the blood and then they find out that I've got X quantity of the blood. Out of that,
Yes,
so much
ma'am.
percentage is WBC, so much percentage RBC, so much percentage is platelets.
Yes, ma'am. How do they find it then?
By calculating the quantity.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll end with the session today. I'll meet you all tomorrow at 10 o'clock.